Going live on YouTube right now. All right, we're good.
So, that's my favorite one. My baby boy. All right, say hi to Neil. We already did that this week. So, someone here at the church forgot to put in the conversion information. I don't want to mention any names for this. This was our Chuck Peters. Unfortunately, I apologize because normally you see conversion Bible app. Our notes are not in there tonight. So this is false advertising.
Fake news.
So don't forget. I think we wrap up the grace course of the women's study this Friday at 9:30. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram. Follow us there. Subscribe to us on YouTube. We're live right now on YouTube. Thank you, Jesus, that everything works. MySpace, Charles says. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter. Let's pray. Thank you so much again as we enter the teaching portion of worship. That somehow we learn learn more about you, fall deeper in love with you. It's not to take away tonight from, I hate to say that they're the failings of Jacob and his wives, Father. They're less even all directed, both positive and negative. So, Father, again, help us understand your scripture. We break it down tonight. Thank you so much for this time. Amen. All right. So, I saw earlier this guy named Ted Ekstrom and Edward Dayton in the Christian Leadership Letter some time ago talked about a young man who was appointed president of a bank. And intimidated by his new responsibilities, he nervously sought advice of his gray-haired predecessor. He said, "Sir, what has been the secret of your success?" And the secret, young man, is 2 words: right decisions. Right decisions. That's good. Good business practice, right? Right decisions. The young man said, "Okay, well, how do you make those right decisions?" One word is experience. How do you get experience? Go back small, he said 2 words: wrong decisions. Right? Wrong decisions. I remember when I was going to grad school, that one of my professors said, "Never forget, no matter what job you have, how high you get in the company, you're one bad decision away from flipping burgers." Yeah. So I remember that one bad decision away from flipping burgers. But really, the secret of our success is usually what we think it is. Often I think true success comes from some problems when we think about the success of your own life, some very surprising places. Do you know where that place is? If your Bible's kind of invite you to turn with me to Genesis 30. It's Genesis 30 where Jacob finds good success, but not in the place he expected. So let's check it out, Genesis 30 verses. We're picking up where we left off last week. Remember, we didn't finish chapter 30 last week, so we're in verse 25 and 26. It says, as soon as Rachel had born Joseph, Jacob said to Laban, "Send me away that I may go to my own home and country. Give me my wives and my children for whom I have served you, that I may go to the service that I have given to you." How long was that? Remember all that's been? How long? 14 years. Point for the men tonight. They take the lead. Genesis verse 27. But Laban said to him, "If I found favor in your sight, I have learned by divination that the Lord has blessed me because of you." So Laban wants Jacob to stay because he knows that Jacob is a reason for success. So much so that Laban is willing to pay whatever Jacob asks. In verse 28, he says, "Name your wages, I will give it." Does that sound familiar at all? Does that sound familiar on his last chapter? Look at Genesis 29:15. It's the same thing Laban had told Jacob 15 years earlier. Then Jacob asked for Rachel as his wages, but Laban tricked him and gave him Leah. Well, Jacob thought about, for that same trick, the old switcheroo, he was bamboozled. Was he bamboozled? Or those switcheroo. Verses 29 and 30. Jacob says to him, "You yourself know how I have served you, and how your livestock has fared with me. For you had little before I came, and it increased abundantly, and the Lord has blessed you wherever I turn. But now, when shall I provide for my own household also?" So what's Jacob have? Jacob has 2 wives, 2 concubines, at least 12 children, the ones that were told about, not about all this, only taught about 1 daughter, more than likely has more than that. Now, what's he need to do? So you have all these, what do you need to do now? You leave me, you go provide for all this. So they've been asked, verses 31 and 33. What shall I give you? Jacob said, you shall not give me anything. What? Would you ask for something? He says, well, you will not give me anything. If you will not do this for me, I will again pass your flock and keep it. Let me pass through all your flock today. Remove me from it every speckled and spotted sheep, every black lamb, and the spotted and speckled among the goats, and they shall be my wages. So my honesty will answer for me later. When you come to look at my wages with you, every one that is not speckled and spotted among the goats, black among the lambs, if found with me, shall be counted as stolen. So what is he asking for? He's asking for all the animals that aren't good enough to sacrifice. So again, both of those days was measured by the number of domesticated animals you have. But Jacob was asking again for that rare kind. He's asking for the spotted, the speckled, or the black sheep, or and it goes down. Again, what's unique about that request is these are usually the rejects of the flock. But Jacob asked for these to prove his integrity related. Because you see, do they trust each other? If they're both swindlers, right? No, both of them are kind of. What do you say? Raunchy businessmen, or something like that. Car salesmen, stable salesmen. So this is again, you see, they don't trust each other. This is a way to prevent any false accusations and ensure that nobody's cheating. Well, they can't believe his ears. This is music to his ears. Yeah, give them all that, give them all the trash. Right? Jacob's offering to take the rejects of the flock, and there really aren't many of those for practically nothing. So Laban sees himself getting several more good years of quality labor from Jacob. It's a deal he can't refuse. Right? You gotta remember too that Laban's being blessed having Jacob there, right? Because God's working with Jacob. So it's not only that he wants him there for the cheap labor, he's wanting to see us being blessed because of it. So what does that have to say about us? I mean, I would love to hang around like-minded people, like-minded Christian people that are growing in the Lord, people that are, you see, God touching. Now, there's a time in Pastor Gary's ministry where everything you touched just turned to gold. And it was awesome being around him. And so when they first started, so long story about when they first started Revival, it was a fireman, and so I had this kind of a home fellowship. They went to Calvary Costa Mesa, and there's a list of people that just got out of school there. Out of all the guys there, they pick Gary. Gary goes out, and they started Revival in a home, and it goes into Calvary Patrick Elementary School. And that's how he thought, because he was happy with that. And even though he majored in church growth. And then they had enough money to get their own building. So they buy the building. And the funny thing is, so the church, if you go by Revival, sits on 5 acres or 10. 5 acres. I think it's 5 acres. So at the time, he had the opportunity to buy 10 acres for half of what he had paid for. Well, the other additional 5 acres were what he had paid for the 5 acres. Yes, my church is never going to do that. He goes, so he didn't do it. It would be the thorn in his side unless the church got over a couple thousand people. So the neighbors complained about parking there. But so it grew from it, just continued to grow. He said his first day in one of his first services, a 90-year lady came up to talk to him that he'd never seen before or since, and said, people are going to be coming over the wheat fields by the thousands to come in and preach. And never saw her again. And at the time, we had one service of maybe 200-300 people. And never thought they were going to fill about 800 seat auditorium. And Christmas and Easter, we used to run 8 packed services. We used to put people in the pastor's room so they could watch on TV, the coffee shop, in the children's classrooms on TVs. We had to put up a tent outside with a big TV on it, just to fill up people. And it was just, again, they came across the fields to do it. But those are the kind of people that you want to be around, that you see God working through that. able to be part of their lives. Because that's agape love. Because what's agape love? It's an overflowing love, but some of that is eventually just gonna reach and touch you. So just something to think about who we hang out with and who we do life with. So again, Lady can't believe is here, because the rejects there really aren't many of those. But and for practically nothing, David seems up in all those years, more years of service, so verses 34 to 36. David said, good, let it be as you have said. But that day, David removed the milk goats that were striped and spotted, and all the people goats that were speckled and spotted. Every one of them, every one that had white on it, every lamb that was black, and put them in charge of his sons. They said that this is a 3 days journey between himself and Jacob, and Jacob pastured the rest of Laban's flock. So what's Laban doing here? He's being very, very shrewd. He doesn't want Jacob getting rich off this deal, so Laban gives Jacob's animals to his own sons to care for and separates them, right? Because he doesn't want any of the pure mixing with any of his reject ones. That way, again, Jacob can't make his spotted animals with Laban's spotted animals to get more spotted speckled animals. He just wants to take what was already there. Doesn't want any new ones to be added to the mix. So Laban again is being very shrewd, but we're going to see Jacob is even more shrewd. You see, Jacob doesn't make a big deal because doesn't make this a deal because he's stupid. He has a future except his own. So you got to remember he's a shyster too, right? And he's counting on the shrewd deal to get rich off Laban's expense. And I think that's what some of us do. We count our own shrewd deals to get ahead. Now, we may not be cheating anybody in particular, but there are times when we attribute our own success really to our own cleverness. And when I was in the business school, I'm a numbers person. And working in a call center environment, that was it for me. I'm used to interview for other jobs as I moved up the food chain and had healthcare. I used to tell them, they go, what's the enjoy about being in a call center? And I think, because no one ever says when you're in school, what do you want to do? I want to go from a call center, right? And but when I was there, it was very addictive. I used to say, and sometimes I come in, so I was the first person there. And I kind of hope that we had a system outage or something went down, because I just love that frantic pace. I think I think better under pressure, and when something's broke, especially in the call center environment, we had, I always explain to Carol, we have performance guarantees where we have some big accounts where we didn't answer the phone within 3 seconds for a quarter on an average, we have to have millions of dollars to some of these other companies. And we were very close. I think it was GE. We were very close. We were coming in. It was going to be really close. I think we were going to be just over that mark, and not up there without to pay back to GE. I think something like $17 million. So I was in charge. My boss knew that I could game this system, and I did. I was good. I mean, I didn't cheat anybody, but I brought in some other people, and I stacked that phone line. There are people that we have 500 call seats, 500 seat call center, and there were people there that took 2 calls that day, 2 days, as we got that time down. But we were getting it like 27 seconds. So save us $17 million. Dude, I got out of it? Movie tickets. So, again, that was, I gamed the system. It was something at the time I was proud of, and I'm going, and you know what? I pulled these people out, I forced the overtime on these people to come in and do this thing with it. And if I would have done what they thought they made, we just messed up. We should have paid that out. But I don't know, it's kind of, that's one of those gray areas, right? Right? Not big. Disagree with me. Again, so, but that's what they do. They do some of our shrewdness so that we're getting ahead. And again, that we're not really cheating anybody, but again, we think, oh, it's about cleverness that did that. I read a story about an archaeologist who was digging in the desert in Israel, and during the dig came upon a sarcophagus containing a mummy, and after examining it, he called the curator of a prestigious natural history museum. He said, I just discovered a 3,000-year-old mummy of a man who died of heart failure. So just looking at him, he said, 3,000 years old, died of heart failure. Curator said, bring him in, that will check it out. So week later, the mass curator called the archaeologist, said, you were right about the mummy's age and cause of death. How in the world did you know that? Just by accident, just by looking at it. The archaeologist replied, it's easy, there was a piece of paper to stand that read 10,000 shekels on your life. Was it get that? Keep that on the life. There it is. So even our schemes often fail, even if we think they're sure bet. So don't trust your own shrewd deal. Don't depend on your own intelligence. Don't rely on your own cleverness to get ahead. Proverbs 3:5 says, it makes it very clear if you want to your life to go smoother, what's it say? Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not lean on your own understanding. Do not lean on your own understanding. So there's so much, no matter how close we're walking with God, there's still a lot of that sinful nature in there. And like I said, I was a Christian at the time when I gave that system. And that's not the only time. That was a big game. That was a big time game that the company depended on me to get that done. There were other times where I basically keep my team the number one team at call center. So, and even though I really didn't break any rules, I still gave some system to some numbers. So again, your own understanding says, don't keep promises or honor a bit if it's going to hurt you, but then people learn not to trust you anymore. You lose business, more business you gain. There's been a few times here where I've had people come in and give us a bid on something, and then turn out somebody's going to be something else. And they don't come. And I look at them, and they just never come back. That happens more often than not. I mean, I don't know what it is about contractors coming to a church, say they're gonna work up a bid and they'll never call you again. And I've talked to some other pastors in the neighborhood, it's a pretty common theme. How about our own business says, flesh the books a little bit, figures look better than they are, but then your business fails like Enron and the banks that cover their bad loans create a gap. Now, your own understanding says, make sure people pay for their offenses against you, otherwise they'll walk all over you. But then you become an embattled person that has no real friends, you know, claim the victim of the entire time. I'm this way because my mom used to make me salad. Maybe eat not that milk. My grandma made me drink powdered milk for a time. That's nasty. That was the thing. We were poor. They're cheap, not poor, not poor. In hard times, don't be generous, but keep as much money as you can so you don't have to take care of yourself. But then you become stingy and hardened to people, and no one's there to help you have the need. And I've seen this at some larger churches, and I call it the food bank here in town, but I wouldn't call it the food bank here in town, where people are hungry, they need food, they go down there and get the junk foods to get it. You fill out forms and be approved. What do you need? Just give them food. And then they complain about a lot of the food going bad. You got the food. Your understanding says ignore the sin of your friend's life so you don't have hurt feelings or so you hurt their feelings or their friendship. But then your friend's life is destroyed and you lose that friendship anyway when the whole situation blows up in your face. Iron sharpens iron. You never know that. Especially with other Christians. You gotta talk to them. When you do it the way they do it with Matthew, you find something against, brother or sister, you go to them first. Go to them first. Don't gossip about it to 20 other people. And how do people gossip? How do Christians gossip? In prayer. And we need to pray for Marcel, he's this or that age. We need to pray. Or they'll just pray in a big group of friends, and then if someone ends up getting hurt, hey, I told you that in conference, or they ask, were you praying about me? Well, yeah, but no, that's not the way you handle things. Go to them first. You pray with them. Again, it's a lot of ways. There's a lot of hurt people in church. That's the way a lot of people leave churches. It's because other people are hurting in that way. They go, I just thought I was helping them with praying. No, you're not helping them. You help them to pray them on when they feel comfortable. So I have more people come in. Just keep that in mind. Oh, understand, it says, put yourself up by your bootstraps and don't expect God to help you if you don't help yourself. But then you become too proud to recognize your need for help until it's too late. Because we always help ourselves. I think more men have a problem than women. They always think we're drowning ourselves. Our own understanding tells us to do a lot of things that seem right, but in the end, causes greater hardship and pain. So if you truly want to succeed, don't depend on your own intelligence. Don't rely on your own cleverness to get ahead. Don't trust in your true wisdom. Don't trust in your spent schemes. Don't waste time with useless ploys. Don't exhaust yourself with tricks that don't work. That's what Jacob does. He wastes his time with a maiden scheme that doesn't work. Verse 37. When Jacob took fresh sticks of popular and almond and plane trees and peeled white streaks in them, exposing the white of the sticks. So what he's doing here is he's peeling strips off the bark of these logs so they have a striped appearance. First part of verse 38. He sets the sticks that he had peeled in front of the flocks in the trough. That is the watering place where the flocks can drink. So Jacob is applying this baby practice that makes no sense to us today, but he was acting upon a common belief in his day that what a mother sees during her pregnancy, that's going to affect her offspring. I've heard something like this, we all heard something like this down the line. For example, she sees stripes during her pregnancy, she's going to bear striped offspring. Right? And if she sees spots, she's going to bear offspring with spots. In Bible college, we had to read a book about a pastor's family that had immigrated to the United States from Sweden in the 19th century. The name of it was Papa's Wife. And in the book, Papa, the pastor, refused to let his wife sit in the back of the church when she was pregnant. That's because there was a couple of redheaded and mean-tempered boys in the church. Papa was afraid that his wife looked at them. She was going to have redheaded boys when the baby came. When the baby came, so every time she got pregnant, Papa would make sure that his wife would sit in front. That way, his money could avoid having redheaded children. Have we all heard something like this? All something wives tells. I know that when my aunt was getting married this is in the Catholic Church, the priest asked her, "Is there anybody in the other family that rubs you the wrong way, or that you don't care for, or you don't like?" And her person she was married, her fiance at the time, mentioned someone in our family. And the reason was that he wanted my aunt to become aware of that person, so they didn't have any kids that would end up like someone that he didn't like. Is that weird? Very superstitious, but there are things like that. I remember hearing things like, you want your parents to eat carrots and peanut butter. You hear that one? You guys gotta help me out with some of that humor. Carrots and peanut butter, because that way your baby will have good eyes and brown skin.
What?
So there's one actually that worked. Carol was due with my son, and she hadn't dropped yet. So my grandma was what you need to do. You walk around the block, one foot in the street, and one foot on the curb. Yeah. So there's that one work. You guys heard anything like that? We're so weird. Just my family that was weird. Pineapples? What about pineapples?
If you want to go in favor, when you're supposed to use the pineapple.
Was that supposed
My
to
daughter.
be? Yeah.
Yeah, use the labor.
Swimming? Was that Chuck?
He's talking about walking into the ladder and have a black cat walking through there.
I'm not talking about, no, I'm talking about something that affects your kids. That will affect your kids. Like eating the carrots, having eating carrots, but that dark skin, not having something against another family member, otherwise your kids come out. And my grandma said, your kids are good, just like you. And who all got that curse? And I didn't know that curse, right? Your kids just like good way to transfer that, right? So, but we know that since the discovery of genes and the rise of the whole field of genetics, we know that this notion is completely unfounded. What a woman looks at during her pregnancy has no effect on her offspring. So looking at redheads does not produce redheaded children. Anyone who looks at stripes produces striped offspring. That's what he does. But Jacob doesn't know that. He thinks he's being clever when he peels stripes off the bark and branches of the trees and puts them in front of the flocks. Look what happens. Verses 38, 39. And since they bred, when they came to drink, The flocks bred in front of the stakes, and so the flocks brought forth striped, speckled, and spotted. So it seems like Jacob's scheme works, or so it seems, but look at the text carefully. Check out verse 39 again. It says, the flocks bred in front of the stakes, and so the flocks brought forth striped, speckled, and spotted. The Bible simply describes a sequence of events without assigning casualties to this sequence. Just because two events happen, one right after the other, doesn't necessarily mean the first event caused the second, right? They're going to meet anyway. In fact, God's going to make it very clear to Jacob in the next chapter that it was not his scheme that made him rich, it was God himself who did it. But right now, Jacob thinks he's the man. Verses 40 and 42. And Jacob separated the lambs and set the faces of the flocks towards the stripe, and all the black on the flock of Laban. He put his own droves apart, did not put them with the Laban's flock. Whenever the stronger of the flock were breeding, Jacob would lay the sticks to the troughs before the eyes of the flock, that they may breed among the sticks. But for the feebler of the flock, he would not lay them there. So the feebler would be laid with the stronger Jacob. Seems like a lot of work. A lot more work than he had to do. The original Hebrew text says, the weak animals went to Laban and the strong ones to Jacob. Again, the text is simply describing the sequence of events, not assigning casualty. Verse 33. Thus the man increased greatly, and the large flocks, female servants, and male servants counted. So Jacob did not get rich because what Jacob did. Jacob got rich because God prospered him. Jacob's scheme of peeling the strips off the bark of the branch of trees, of putting them in strong females at the right time, or removing, it seems like a lot of work that really didn't do anything. All that was a waste of time and effort. All Jacob had to do was what? Depend on God, trust on God, trust in God. But promise him what? To take care of him 14 years ago. The Abrahamic covenant. Instead, he was doing all this to create a lot of extra work, unnecessary work for himself, which got frustrating at that time because later he kept changing the terms of the deal. And as we're going to see in the next chapter, Jacob trusted this exhausting, useless scheme. And sometimes I think we do the same thing. We think it's our efforts that make the difference when God himself is doing the work. I think there's a lot of times we're getting in his way. We're getting in his way. Again, we have a friend who was a pastor who always wanted to be a pastor of a Calvary chapel, and he was in Bible college. He kept telling all his friends, I'm going to be a pastor of a Calvary chapel. They go, well, how does it have that for you? He goes, well, then I'll do it on my own. Right? And that's the thing. We do that. We get it his way. Now, again, don't get me wrong. God never rewards laziness, but we're always responsible for our own acts. But if we think that it's our hard work that produces results, we're only kidding ourselves. I told you that about my time I got out of healthcare. Well, God's the one who gave me the gift, the numbers person, the love for numbers, the love for that to work under pressure like that. It wasn't anything that I did or did to myself or tried to promote. It was just something that he instilled in me. And thankfully now that I'm in ministry, a lot of that is gone. He's removed that from me. He's given me a lot more peace around it. Because believe me, there's some times in my day where we have to read a lot of prep sermons and messages to counsel people. And when I was working in an environment, call center environment, I didn't have that kind of patience to just sit there and read a book. And the last few years, God's allowed me that time because I've always liked to read, just never had the time for it because of my job. But I'm loving it. I set a goal big starting 5 years ago, getting through 100 books a year. And I get through anywhere between 100, 120 books a year. Because God gives me that time to do something that I enjoy. And not only something that I enjoy, he's using it to help me do ministry. So I'm reading these books that I normally probably wouldn't read, but there's some of these books that I read through prep sermons and messages that I end up falling in love with and wanting to read again and again because there's just so much that God has given me. So again, God's given me these gifts, nothing that I've done for myself. James 1:17 says, every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights. You need to remember that every good gift, any gift that we have comes from God. We constantly need to thank Him. That's why I always say when we're in prayer, don't, we spend at least 1 or 2 nights a week where we're not petitioning for anything, but we're just sitting there and thanking God for everything He's done for His blessings for us, just loving on Him for being the creator that He is. Amen? So our every success, our every blessing, our every achievement is coming from God Himself, who delights in giving His children good things, right? Your kids come up and you're able to give them something and they love it. How's that feel? They should go great, right? How about when the kids can come to mom, dad, or grandma, give me. You give them something and they don't appreciate it, don't it? Doesn't make it feel good, right? But if you give them something just out of the blue and they're thankful for it, it's awesome to see. So we just stop exhausting ourselves with these useless schemes, stop trying so hard to work on all our complicated plans and simply trusting God, depend on Him to keep His word to you. You'll enjoy your life a whole lot more. I think a few weeks ago, I can't remember if it was Sunday or Wednesday night, where we talked about praying on the promises of God. How many promises were there in the Bible? You remember? Over 7,000 promises. Pray on those promises. God's made those promises to you. Just go through them and start praying on them. Right? Again, you'll enjoy your life a whole lot more. In action speaks louder than the words. Scripture writes, 2 Kentucky farmers who own racing stables have developed a keen rivalry. One spring, each of them entered a horse in the local steeplechase. Thinking that the professional rider might help him out to his friend, one of the farmers engaged a professional jockey. These 2 horses were neck and neck with a large lead over the rest of the pack at the last fence. But suddenly both fell, unseating their riders. The professional jockey remounted quickly and rode on to win the race. Returning triumphantly to the paddock, the jockey found the farmer who had hired him, fuming with rage. What's the matter, the jockey said, I won, didn't I? He said, yeah, you won. You won all right, but you crossed the finish line on the wrong horse. In his hurry to remount after all, the jockey had jumped on the competitor's horse. That's a lot of people are getting on the wrong horse in their own self-effort and losing the race of life. All self-effort can't save us from sin. Ephesians 2:8-9 says, for by grace you've been saved through faith. And this is not your own doing, it's the gift of God, not a result of works, so that many may boast. So our own self-effort can't get us to heaven. Our own self-effort can't make us more holy or righteous here on earth. In Galatians 3, Paul asks this question. Are you so foolish after beginning the Spirit? Are you now trying to attain your goal by human effort? So our only human effort can't get us to heaven. Our own human effort can't make us better people here on earth. And certainly our own effort can't fix, our spouses or our children. 1 Peter 3 talks to wives about winning over their husbands. What's he said? Without words, but by unfading beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit. You don't win your husband by nagging or dropping hints or manipulating them to make the right decisions. No, you do by living your life like God wants to live. Trusting you to get through to your husband. And that was one of the things that Kelsey was with me to Christ. There wasn't really much that she said. I saw her make a decision and start living like a Christian. When we first met, I drug her down. She'll say, she'll take some responsibility for it, but I drug her down. And she somewhere, I don't remember when, somewhere in there, she made the decision to start following Christ again. And I shared with the board that she would draw me to him, not by what she said, but just by the way she treated me, the way she acted. She never told me I had to go to church. She was invited me, but never told me I had to. And then we had another family member who would push me away. I would see her as a Christian, and that's the Christians that I know. That's what they're like. That's why I don't want to be one. And it was this push and pull. But finally, I went in to church and heard the gospel and just really felt it with my spirit awoke for the first time. So that's how we live. That's going to attract others to Christ. That's what attracts other of our family members to Christ, other of my family members to Christ. It wasn't really anything that I said or Carol said, but how they saw our relationship, how they saw God with our relationship. I've had a few of them say, but what are you doing differently? The only thing I'm doing differently is give my life to Christ. No, what are you doing? Why is Carol with you? I go, I don't know, I think she's blind, I don't know. I always say, I drink the Carol's bad decision making once a year on that. But it's nothing that we've done, it's God working through, I think, each one of us. Because if he wasn't in our lives, I'm not sure we'd be together. Who knows, but we would have as much fun as we have now. So again, we think it's our schemes, our purchase results all along. It's just God doing that work. Jesus said, apart from me, what can we do? Nothing. So we must live our lives in a daily dependence on him. Dependence on him. Otherwise, we're just uselessly expanding our energy and frustrating the wasted effort. Pastor Lee Oswald from Vernon Hills, Illinois, talked about his first visit to a health club in the 70s. His friend Frank had invited Lee to go with him, and when they arrived, they heard roof filled with weight machines. Lee had never seen things like this in his life, so Frank explained that they were split 3 minutes on each machine, exercising all the various muscle groups as they go along. Frank called it the circuit. Well, there was a muscle bound guy in charge, no nonsense, tight t-shirt guy, and he said he walked through the group through use of each machine, and after his tour, he sat on the first one, while a few other folks took their turns at the other machines. And the guy in charge yelled, 2 minutes on each machine, and blew his whistle, and he started to pull down on a set of handlebars attached to some legs, and nothing. He just worked this machine a few minutes earlier, but this time nothing happened. He was trying to live good budget, and she tried harder, still nothing happened. The t-shirt guy yelled at him something like, "Come on, you overweight Daisy." So they redoubled his efforts and nothing happened. He thought his shoulder was going to separate. He was sweating like a coal miner. He says until he gave up in shame. He looked down at the machine to feet. At that point, his friend Frank came over to help him. Frank looked at the thing over and discovered that someone had pulled the pin on the proper way. He had been trying to lift all the weight the machine had, like 500 pounds. But that was it for him. He gave up. He walked out because he was exhausted by all his useless effort. And that's what it's like trying to live our lives by our own self. We think we can live the way by ourselves, so we keep trying harder, especially when someone's yelling at us, right? Some things we're doing wrong. We keep redoubling our efforts, but before long, we give up and walk out. And that's what people, I think, are doing in some marriages. That's what people are doing with religion. That's what people are doing in life. A lot of people are checking out because they're frustrated by their useless wasted effort. There's a much better way to live, and that's to let Jesus live the way for you. Depend on him to take you to heaven. Depend on him to make you a better person. Depend on him to fix your family, to live your life dependent on Christ and save yourself the frustration of living and trying to work out your own useless schemes. Lean on Christ. How hard is that? Just give it everything over to him. You want that true success in life, don't depend on your true deals, don't depend on spent schemes. Instead, depend on Lord, trust him with your life. Live in daily dependence on Christ. Then you'll discover his good, acceptable, and perfect will for you. Simply trusting every day in him. How hard can that be? Especially when life starts weighing you down and pressing on you. And for some reason, the more tension we get in our lives, the more we want to try to get out of ourselves. I don't know why that is, but we need to recognize that. And especially if you're married, we have each other. If you see your spouse starting to struggle like that, I know a lot of times we don't want to see it, but just say, hey, take a break, step back, and take a break. Let's pray through what's going on here. That's one thing that we always say about when we start an argument, trying to get an argument. We get arguments, but they don't last but a minute or two because right away we recognize what's going on, and we're pretty quick to start to stop, step back, and pray about it, Get the enemy out of there. We need to do that in all parts of our lives. The enemy doesn't want you getting there. The enemy doesn't want you having that the life in the Lord. And when we start having success, especially in business or our personal life, and we depend on God, and God's helping us do that, the enemy doesn't like to see that. So he wants to throw a wrench in the fire. Don't let him get that foothold. Just give everything over to him. Again, I challenge you for the rest of the week. Please spend one night before Sunday and just sit down and thank God for who he is. Don't petition, don't ask him for anything. Just love on him. And you'll see how fast and how long counting your blessings are to him will go. It's a long time. Amen? Let's pray. Father God, thank you so much again for your word. thank you that we can come and learn more about you, your ways. And you give us these stories to realize that we get caught up doing the same thing. We get caught up doing things in our own self-effort when, yeah, you call us to work, we cost us on you. And when we do it out of our, the stubbornness or the minute brain power that we have and not lean on you, it makes things harder work. So Father, I just ask my prayer for everyone here and watching on YouTube and Facebook that they depend on you, they lean on you. And you've given us these gifts, and every time that we have these good gifts, at work, help us point it back to you, Father. Help us point it back to you, to give you glory. So Father, we love you, we just ask that you get home, everybody that's here home safely. Thank you for those that have joined us on Facebook and YouTube, Father, and we love you in Jesus' name. Amen. Don't forget to be strong and courageous. All right, shut her down up there. Did they both work?
Yeah.